It's a Friday. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
A beautiful Friday at that, right?
Most certainly.
Oh, yes. I'm Kaido Kikili. You're welcome.
And I can imagine so many people saying, thank God it's Friday.
Oh, yes.
And it's a good day also to give you an update on one of the topics that we discussed in the course of the week.
Oh, yes. Earlier in the week.
Yeah.
So we were discussing the federal government's auto gas policy. I mean, it's no news that the federal government is trying to transition a lot of Nigerians. I mean, if you want to, such that your cars will no more be running on diesel or petrol, will be running on gas, that's CNG and LPG. And a lot of people were thinking, well, this is a good idea, right?
Absolutely, especially because it is part of the ESP,
Oh, yes.
which is that document produced, I think, sometime in August or thereabout, that's supposed to last for like 12 months.
Yeah.
So it's like track 2 or whatever of that plan. And, we've had the Minister, of State for Petroleum talking about it over and over again, talking about the CNG and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, fine. That's good, but how's it going to be?
Oh, yes. So we had a conversation with someone from the ministry, and, we're finding out about the cost of conversion, because it's a big deal. Yes, in case you don't know, some people run their cars already on gas, a few people. Some generators, actually.
Some people may not even know that there are CNG stations in Nigeria already. On our corridor of town here, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, there's a fuel station that all the deal in is CNG.
So it's a big deal. So the cost was a major issue. So at that point, perhaps there was a mix-up. So this is the latest about how much it will cost to convert your cars to auto gas running vehicles, especially the policy that the federal government is putting up. So this is an update on that. Take a listen.
I granted an interview on Channels Television on Sunrise Daily, where I stated that the auto conversion of vehicles to run on gas will amount to 250,000, and Nigerians will need to pay for that. That statement is not correct, it's wrong. So on that note, I'd like to state 32 position which has been made by my boss, the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, His Excellency Dr. Timipri Silva, and of course being corroborated by the Group Managing Director, Malamele Kiari, that government will convert those vehicles for free to Nigerians, and we're looking at 1 million vehicles by the end of 2021.
So that's the update. It's not 250,000, at least for the 1 million vehicles by the
first
end.
1 million vehicle.
By the end of 2021. So that's an update, because a lot of people thought, wait a minute, because they listened to the minister, listened to the GMD, and they thought it was free. So perhaps that mix-up has been cleared now. So it is now on record. It will be free. So get your cars ready, maybe.
And then, so what goes on after the first 1 million cars?
Big question.
Maybe we will have another update on that in good time.
Maybe.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the papers this morning after now. Leads with this one. Calls for Buhari's resignation irresponsible, as attributed to the federal government. Who is the federal government? Of course, the details will be on the inside pages. With no apology for asking him to leave, that's according to the Northern Elders Forum, NEF. President must go, Afenifere says. Defend yourselves, ACF, SSPEC tell citizens. The details of that you will need to get in context, because most of the time people just go with the lead. CNC violates rules by retaining service chiefs. That's ascribed to Shekara. Of course, we had that interview with him yesterday. It's perhaps being quoted on the inside pages of the Daily Trust newspaper today. That story is on page 5. The details are right there. And of course, that story, that picture you see there, the headline to the story is right under it. Mena extradited as court admits 18 exhibits. Find that story on page 3. 106 illegal radio frequencies in operation, says the federal government. Page 45 of the paper has that one. Right under the nameplate, NSARS. Lagos compensates slain cops' families with 60 million naira. And on the other end of that page, diaspora remittances begin today. CBN eyes $2 billion revenue monthly. Now that's, if we have $2 billion revenue monthly, are we still going to need to take a loan?
Big questions.
For the
economic
budget.
handlers, not for Coyote.
That's the Daily Trust today.
We'll take a look at Nigerian News Direct's the lead story. Borno killings. Calls for Buhari's resignation irresponsible. That statement is credited to Lai Mohammed. You may have been hearing calls, especially by the Northern Elders Forum, asking the president to resign. So this is a response, as it seems, from the government saying it is irresponsible. But clearly this might not be the end of this. Maybe another response, then counter-response. But the issues are there, really, and I think that's also important to focus on and not lose sight of it, because this is a war. This is a collective war, and you wonder just how many people are on board this war. Right on top of the nameplate, Miner extradited to Nigeria, arrives Abuja. This is something that has dated back to 2017. And I saw some people making comments on social media saying, why was he even granted bail? Especially because, we know the precedents, but you know how law works. It's something to you, but then in terms of constitutional provisions, it's another thing. So perhaps this is based on that. But you remember that video that was sent to Channels Television while he was in hiding, in quotes, trying to say that, some things are not right. Some people are not telling the president the truth. And I believe maybe this might be part of the evidence tendered in court. But one thing is sure, this is a big case. This is a huge one.
I think, this should just be one of those cases or examples, perhaps, that will prove to a number of people if indeed we operate a reliable rule of law, so to speak. Because if this one rule goes on the way it is going, and we have any other example of such and is handled differently, it's going to be a problem.
Big one there. Right on top of that nameplate also, you see, Igbo presidency will lift Nigeria. Ezefe, that's ahead of 2023. And, there are a lot of permutations, really, calculations ahead of that one. So, 2023, is it?
Isn't it how many years now?
Well, to you, maybe 3 years, but believe me.
Because, there's usually that talk that in the year before an election, governance seems to stop. Is it coming early? Is this coming too early? Because there are so many issues to deal with right now. Talking about 2023, I don't know, it would look like a lot of distractions.
But don't forget, some of these issues will need to be solved by, the executive,
exactly.
Headed by the president. So,
exactly.
As we're solving today's issues, some are looking at tomorrow's issues and thinking, who will be right to solve tomorrow's issues? So, in that light, for you, 2023 might be 3 years, but for the average politician out there,
I'd say
it's just about tomorrow, next week.
There's so many big issues right now. Insecurity is very high, unemployment figures, poverty. Those ones are clear and present right now. So why not face those ones and then come up with policies that can help us to even have that 2023 in the first place?
Well, Again, that question is for the politician and not for me. All right, that's Nigeria News Direct for you.
Yeah, the Vanguard newspaper comes next, and this is also still talking about something related to some unrest. Anxiety in Edo as gunmen block road, abduct scores. Now, I can't even begin to conjecture how that is even possible. Gunmen block road, abduct schools. Stories on page 6. Block Bene Ekpoma Auchi Road. Selected their victims from private and commercial vehicles. Selected their victims from private and commercial vehicles. Marched them into the bush. Many motorists, caught unawares, ran into the ambush. Well, for this to even make the headlines, I'm wondering, what happened to security along this road, because I believe that, we usually have those, stops along major highways. How come this one is? I guess the details are on the inside, and I want to believe that the authorities already have a leash on it. And that picture you see there is of Oshodi Apapa Road, Osinbajo, Sanwo-Olu, Odumosu. Why? This gridlock is likely connected, may not be unconnected with the Apapa, road that, people have been talking about. This is significant, if we can just use that. And there's a headline, Apapa Oshodi Expressway on lockdown. The story is on page 11. Check the details right there. And Boko Haram, use of mercenaries, FG's decision. That's according to Defense Headquarters. The story is on page 5 of the paper this morning. And so many other stories you can choose and pick from. NSARS, how hoodlums vandalized, looted my business. That story is on page 14. On the back page is Vanguard Sports. Rangers are back to dominate Nigerian League. That'll be good to see, because back in time, I remember you only had just a handful of football teams that you could name. Rangers International, IICC Shooting Stars, Water Corporation, Leventis came up later, stationery stores. Who else? There was also that team from Boko, where Rashidi Akini came from. Anyway, that's the lead of the Vanguard Sports on the back page. Why are you laughing?
You almost sound like you played in that league at that point.
I play that from home. It's the spectators play a lot. They know the best angles.
Goodness. Well, next up is the Guardian newspaper for you, and the lead story talks about something different but of utmost importance also. Public internet access wanes despite 33 trillion naira investment. Public internet access. And if you put that in context of the investment, you begin to wonder how. But take a look at the writers. Lagos Free Wi-Fi project struggles. I wonder if you've ever used that free Wi-Fi in Lagos?
Is there free Wi-Fi in Lagos?
Well, you see, it's struggling according to the Guardian newspaper this morning. By the way, Wi-Fi is something very tricky here. You don't get to use people's Wi-Fi just like that. You need to approach with so much begging, and you see the passwords. You think, wait a minute, you have uppercase, lowercase, you have digits, you have symbols. Wait, it's just Wi-Fi, really. But internet is a big deal. Operators to concentrate more services in urban cities, but don't forget the rural areas also need internet access.
And that is a lot. There's a lot of talk around that, because so many things revolve around it. Let me talk about one that we have been thinking about and we need to do something very serious about. One, most of the time when people go to the rural areas, the most you'll get is 2G. So in some cases, you have to even go locate yourself in certain areas to get the 2G. So how easy would that farmer be able to transport their produce from the farm to city centers where they will be patronized? The local artisans who make arts and crafts from the villages, how easily would they be able to take pictures of their materials to upload somewhere and stuff like that? I have been a victim, so to speak. Maybe that was a long time ago, but how quickly are we even pursuing this internet penetration thing is another thing altogether. Now, the one that we talk about the most when we talk about internet penetration is elections. Voting via electronic means.
We're going to be doing that soon.
Well, now, if we're going to be doing that soon, how do we ensure there aren't internet downtimes when the most we have is 1G or 2G at certain areas? For instance, when you are on the when you are in a boat atop water, when you're in a boat atop water, there is hardly any internet around the area while you are at sea. So, one wonders how one will be able to do all of that. And then when you send the data from that rural area, how long does it take to upload to the cloud, where it will be downloaded from the INEC server or wherever else, maybe at the local government or at the state level, at the state government level, or at the federal level?
Yeah.
So all these issues are very, very crucial here. So that's why many people talk about the QoS for the telcos and the ISPs. It's a lot of work. And then don't also forget that in all of that, we also have to have that conversation between states. We have to have that conversation among my state and your state. How do we relate? There is that term, I forgot it right now, that you and I have to have an agreement, right of way, they call it. That's right. It. So you and I have to have an agreement about how it's going to go through from Lagos to Borno, from Calabar to Sokoto. All of that is a lot of conversation.
It is, absolutely. And you see, costs of smartphones, laptops pose barrier to affordability and access. And I know Lagos has this, master plan to have, I think, fiber optics and get people to have access to cheaper internet. But you understand that companies will naturally want to make profit.
Oh, certainly.
So how this will play, it's on the front page of The Guardian, continues on page 6. Internet, some have said, is like air, so this is a big deal. But right under that...
This air is costly.
Oh. Well,
you have to pay for it.
Well, if you're paying for oxygen too, it's not cheap.
Well, we don't pay for the one that we're using right now, are we?
That's, And you see, police ask court to stop SARS probe. Group kicks. That's a big one, really. Another big one. IGP orders investigation of suit. That one starts on the front page, continues on page 6. And it will interest you to know that even lawyers are divided on this to an extent. So, as always, as you would expect. Some other stories: police extradite minor from Niger. CBN's new forex remittance policy begins today. So, yeah, watch out. And I think it's important for people to also test this and always give feedback to the CBN and say, well, this is how it worked. These are the gray areas. I think that will help in policy development, because a lot of times we hear policies announced and we just imagine, okay, it's working fine until maybe a month or 2 months after, and then you start hearing that people have been having issues. But it's important for those people to always get back to the CBN through the appropriate channels and say, well, I tried this, it didn't quite work, or it worked, but these are the areas we can improve upon.
What are the appropriate channels? That would be a question to answer, because it's a good idea to want to give information to the authorities. Then what's the appropriate channel through which people can give that information? That one will also be, just as you said, it's for policy development, and it is communication, and we have to get it right. The Leadership newspaper this morning leads with this one, and the interest is about border reopening. Customs, immigration, identify gray areas. That story is on page 4. We need new guidelines on imported goods. It's according to Nigeria Customs Service. Meeting new security challenges are priority. That's according to Immigration Service. Host communities count losses. Lord FG over move to reopen entry points. This is a lot of talk. It's a very, very big one right now, because both at the local level and at the regional level, it is, at sub-regional level in Africa, it is most certainly something that a number of people are, talking about. And for the customs and the immigration to have identified the gray areas, I think it'll be good for people to take a read of this and find out what exactly is being talked about here. And those other issues surrounding why it was necessary in the first place, how far so far. Well, that's on the front page. Insecurity, right under it. Calls for PMB's resignation irresponsible. Find the details of that on the inside pages. The president addresses reps on Thursday. The details are on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And ahead of resumption, varsities set up enforcement committees on COVID-19 protocols. I'm wondering how that is going to happen.
Well,
we'll wait to see, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because, these students haven't seen themselves in like how long?
Well, there's a pandemic. I've been speaking with some Nigerians in diaspora about, COVID-19 and, how the reality there is quite different from the reality here. But don't forget, there's still a pandemic. This is a pandemic year, as some people have called it. And, they don't quite understand how it's working in Nigeria. They keep asking, do you guys realize that there's still COVID-19 out there? And, I'm like, well, for me, I try my best to ensure that I maintain social distancing, wear my face masks, but truth is when you go around, that's not the feel you get.
No, that is not. But so how this is going to happen, especially at the schools, given that most of the same students who were going to resume in schools at the universities were also at the NSAS protest grounds and so many things. And we have seen a marginal increase in the number of COVID-19 cases today. And all the talk about vaccines, I guess time will tell.
Oh, yes. Well, let's just bring you an update really on Koshebe. There was that very sad and gruesome killing last week, over the weekend, and there's been so much response, so much reactions to that, from the presidency to the National Assembly. But most times it's quite interesting that there's a lot of talk at those levels, but the people are still quite neglected. But it's good to see that the president has ordered the delivery of relief items to residents in that area. So you see the Minister of Women Affairs, actually, Pauline Talent, speaking there. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs also was there. And you see the truckload of relief items. And, it is good for the residents. At least they're getting the much needed attention. So clearly they needed this attention all the while. So it's sad that this is what brought the attention. But the good news is that they're at least getting some help.
But then even more good news would be for them to get justice. Because unless, and someone has said it on our program before, if we do not punish an activity, if there are no consequences to sins, to offenses, or to crimes, the temptation or the likelihood of those things being repeated are there. And then there are many other communities needing this kind of attention now, that we shouldn't wait until what happened at Koshebe happens before we give them that attention. Because, as we all know, we know what the primary responsibility of government is. So we expect government to do the needful.
Mr. President, to come and condole and sympathize with the government and people of Borno State over the unfortunate incident that happened, and to also come to the community where these victims come from, those that were murdered, and to also bring some support in terms of food relief and some resources to the affected families.
In the first petition, Police Counsel Emmanuel Eze continued the cross-examination of a 34-year-old trader, Ndukwe Ekekwe, who had narrated at previous proceedings the harrowing details of how he broke his spine sometime in 2018 when some policemen attached to the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS threw him off a 2-story shopping complex at Alaba Market in the Ojo area of Lagos. After the cross-examination, the petitioner closed his case, and the Police Counsel again expressed difficulty with getting his witness to testify.
The IPO is not in this jurisdiction, sir.
We started hearing this petition on the 3rd of November. This is an assignment we have for 6 months.
Yes, my lord.
And as to date, we have not delivered one judgment because of the excuses and requests for adjournment by the police. At the moment, I'm informed we have 210 petitions. If we keep on adjourning and adjourning, we'll be here for another 2 years. And that is not the plan of the panel. You either conclude your case today or we close it and we know we're done with this one. We've given you enough time in respect of this matter.
After further submissions by the Police Council on the difficulties of getting the officers involved, the panel, in the interest of justice, decided to grant a final adjournment to the 8th of December. In the second petition, a building contractor, Olajide Fowotade, at a previous sitting, had claimed that a policeman, simply identified as Ayo, had beaten him up and knocked out 2 of his teeth. Again, the Police Council, Joseph Obosereme, asked for a short adjournment, claiming that he could not reach any of the officers mentioned for their testimony.
Although I'm not from Yoruba, but I'm aware Ayo can be Ayo Dele, Ayomide, Ayodeji, Ayogu, Ayokule. Very many Ayo. No, we don't know whom actually the petitioner is referring to as Ayo.
The panel was served a document yesterday by a member of the public who has furnished us with information about this Ayo Dudu, and his phone number is shown in the letter written to the panel. And where he served before, he was at Zone 2, he was at Anti-Vandals in Abuja, and to the training school at Ogere in Ogun State. And they said he went to SARS in Ikorodu before disbandment of SARS. So this document, which has been served on you, I'm sure, gives you all the information you require.
But, my lord, we are not aware of this. I'm just surprised. We are just seeing it.
It came into the panel yesterday.
We are not aware of it at all.
Members of the public have been very cooperative and are assisting us
Yes, sir. We'll be very
in the
grateful, sir.
discharge of our duties on this panel.
Justice Okuwobi has also directed the registry to ensure that at least 50 of the petitions received are served on the Police Council by the close of business today and duly acknowledged. She says this will give them enough time during the Christmas holidays to search for the IPOs and other officers mentioned by the victims so that they can come forward with their testimonies. Shola Shoyeli, Channels Television News.
So you just saw proceedings at the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry and Restitution, by the way, into SARS-related offences, which is one of many set up across states in the country to look into some of the issues that came out of the End SARS protest, which we had just a few weeks ago. So that's on one hand. But yesterday, a lot of Nigerians saw the report of a certain suit suing the AGF and states attorneys general, asking that these panels be stopped for various reasons. That's on another hand. So if there could be a third hand, is the fact that the police IGP put out a statement saying that, well, how did this come about? We're going to investigate this. So a lot of issues, really. And as you have seen in that opening slide, we're being joined by 2 gentlemen, legal practitioners at that, to help us look into these issues. First is Mr. Adesina Ogulano, who is lawyer to End SARS campaigners, former chairman NBA Ikeja branch and co-convener New Nigeria Network. He will be joining us via Zoom this morning. And we have in our studios Dr. Paul Ananaba, a senior advocate of Nigeria, is also chairman NBA SPIDAL, that's section on public interest and development law. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, different issues. I mean, 3 hands, if there could be. But let's begin from that suit that was said to have been lodged by the police to seek to stop the panels across states. How did that hit you?
Well, from the public interest perspective, which Fidel does in NBA, it's unacceptable to have filed that suit, because the law on that point is clearly settled. So that suit was ill-advised, both in law and in terms of the public. It has so much devastating negative effect on the public. If you remember where we are coming from the NSAS issues and how the government tried to remedy the fury of Nigerians, the youths, by setting up these panels. An action of that nature is not something that should be done in such a hurry, without thorough research, and both of the law and the temperature of the environment. And I take you back to the law. The law is virtually settled. It was settled by the Supreme Court itself in the case of Fawemi and Babangida. And it also spilled over to Amechi and Rivers State. So after such decisions that are in the public domain, one will be disturbed to find such action. And the action is filed at the instance of Nigerian police. That is, it looks like stopping the wheels and the machinery of justice. Let me take it a step further down. What I'm trying to say is, the Commission of Inquiry, if you look at the action from the way the report has been made, they try to say that police know that item 45 in the first schedule is in exclusive legislative list. I don't understand that, because if a fresh employee, lawyer in my office makes such argument, I will likely be taken aback. In Fawemi and Babangida, the Supreme Court made it clear. Commissions of inquiry cannot be set up. That is why you don't hear much about the Puta panel report. That is what rubbished that report. So from Fawemi and Babangida, it became clear in this country that the federal government, there cannot be a central commission of inquiry in Nigeria. So the federal government can only set up commission of inquiry with respect to the FCT. And all the states can set, it's only the state that can set, because it's set up such, because it's in the residual list. The commission of inquiry is not in the exclusive legislative list. Now, the mere fact that the police is item 45 in the first schedule does not in any way mean that if you want to question acts of the police, it must be a federal government issue.
So what reference then, what inference would you then deduce from the section quoted by the lawyer? Well, who said Section 241 of the Constitution?
Well, I am not going to, because the matter is partly sub judice if that action was actually filed. And if that action was actually filed, it is sub judice. Even though there were reports, which I cannot verify really, that the IGP is embarrassed by such action, and there are moves to discontinue it. Until I see a notice of discontinuance as a lawyer, I wouldn't know whether it is out. But strictly speaking, I'm just making general comments. These general comments, Section 21 of the Tribunal of Inquiry Act was interpreted by the Supreme Court along with Section 299 of the Constitution, 1999 Constitution, in front of me and Babangida. And it came up again, like I said, in Amaechi and the Rivers State government. So, you knowing the position of the law, that's what I'm going to. And then filing such action appears to as if you want to test the resolve of many Nigerians. Nigerians have been keenly interested and following these panels, and there has been no report, adverse report from these panels. They've been moving relatively smoothly. Now, you file an action in the Federal High Court in Abuja, for example. If that action is real, you file an action in the Federal Court of Abuja to stop all these panels in 36 states. If the average panel has 7 members, it is 36 plus FCT times 7. You want to suddenly truncate it with one court order or judgment. I believe that law is practiced in society.
But does it, some might say, well, perhaps that suit was just trying to test the waters, see what will happen, because to a large extent, especially in Lagos, virtually every time an issue was raised about the police, no IPO was ever, made present. So, some would probably adduce this court case to the fact that maybe it's an attempt to test the waters and see how Nigerians will react, because the police have not been making themselves available at the panels.
I tend to agree with you, but then the point I want to make is that waters are of different levels. As I crossed Bega coming to your station, I passed through waters, and if I had turned back and continued up to VI, I will get another set of waters. If you enter a ship, you see another waters are of different levels. Even if it was to test waters, not waters that some set of water that is just across the country, nationally, internationally. Have you looked at the magnitude of destruction that the EndSARS brought? Have you looked at the effect of the complaints of the youths? In fact, even the federal government recognized the enormity of the complaint of the youths and acted promptly and said, listen, disband SARS and put up panels, answer 5 for 5 and all that. Now, that is what you want to reverse by a court action. And that is why the judiciary in this country is put into the wrong walls. These are not things you bring to the judiciary. You want to test waters, and who do you want to test it on? The judiciary.
If we can just maybe go back a bit to the setting up of the panels across the states, because, legal practices at this point are even divided about that.
They can be divided, but the law is not divided.
Okay, so regarding the setting up, seeing how it played out from NEC and then flowing to the state, would you say that there's an instrument, really, a formal instrument, backing it up at that level, such that you can always refer to it and say, well, this is what set up the panel, so you can't...
No, you see, the federal government has lawyers. The states have lawyers. And these lawyers we're talking about, they are not just 1 or 2 lawyers. There must be legal opinion. You don't need an instrument. Those are part of the issues in the Oputa panel suit for me and Babangida. There's no formal instrument required as such. All that you see is that after that decision for me and Babangida, it became very clear that commissions of inquiry, whether you call it a panel of inquiry, commission of inquiry, tribunal of inquiry, whichever name you gave it, that the nature of such inquiry is now a residual matter, and it has to be done by the state. That's why wherein all the state governors are members, participated so that they can go back to their states and set up their panels.
So
and the federal government retained its own. Each state has Commission of Inquiry law. The law is already in place. You don't have to set up a special law for police brutality. The commission is already there. So it is, all you need is to executive action to reactivate such laws.
So to that extent, it was done right.
That's the opinion I agree with.
Okay. Well, Mr. Adesina Ogulano joins us. He's a lawyer to NSAS campaigners. You may have seen him at those panel sittings in Lagos, especially. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
Now,
thank you so much.
It's great to have you. Now, I'd like to know, for your clients, people you represent, the NSAS campaigners, how are they taking this latest report about a certain suit and the IGP's reaction? Just how are they internalizing it?
Thank you so much. Well, my people, my clients, consider the said suit as a proof of their conviction that the federal government of Nigeria, governments in Nigeria generally, has lived up to the tradition of not being trustworthy. They saw it as a vindication of their position to continue to pursue their aim peacefully, despite the setup of the panels in the first instance. That's how generally they see it.
But now, hearing the response of the IGP calling for an investigation, does that maybe restore that trust or that, belief in this process?
Not absolutely. From what I could see, the belief is that it is ururu, to use a local Nigerian parlance, that they are just trying to readjust themselves in perception of a strong reaction to this kind of suit, because it's a bit baffling that that kind of a suit will emanate from the police, land in the court. And I heard that even a date has been given for it, December 18th for hearing and all that, only for the IGP to come up to say he does not know anything about it. It's strange. It's possible this is a country that is funny, of anything goes. So we find it difficult to accept or to trust what the IGP is saying. And if indeed he does not know of it or he does not approve of it, it will only mean that either the IGP himself is a weakling or is not in control of his men, of his organization. And that is at the very, very, very best. And at the possible worst, it will only mean that the gentleman is only trying to save face or a backlash. Apparently, it suggests to us that even at that best of scenario, that the government is in disarray. And how will you make a fanfare of setting up a panel? And in fact, one of the set of the panel and all that made the president, Muhammadu Buhari, to later say in one of his broadcasts that it will appear that the easy grant of the request of my client was misconstrued as maybe weakness on the part of government and all that. And now we saw this, only for a reversal again. It's baffling. So he said we'll be querying maybe the head of legal department. Maybe they will extend their investigation to Atoyebi, the senior advocate whose firm has been briefed, who actually briefed him and all that. So, but we are very skeptical, very skeptical.
Well, Mr. Ogulano, one critical element in all of this conversation over time is trust. So with this suit and the reaction of the IGP Because there is also the likelihood, I mean, you have said that there is, you're skeptical and perhaps understandable by some people, but then how much does this action affect the trust quotient, whether it's being built or it's being depleted? How much? Just how significant?
Well, since I'm neither a mathematician, I won't be able to, or a statistician, I won't be able to put a percentage. I could always say, in general terms, that having adopted a watch and wait attitude, I can say for my client that very little. Because, like I said, it's a funny country, it's a funny government. Tomorrow now, Lai Mohammed or the IGP himself will come out as the Minister for Communication, will say, oh, maybe it's even fake news that the IGP had been misquoted. Maybe there could be pressure on the gentleman, and later today you could hear that, no, I never said so. Why should I say so? You cannot depend on these guys. That is the challenge, because what steps have been taken is so huge that you now say that the government does not know about it, because our position is this. It was the government who set up these panels in reaction to protests, lawful legal protests of Nigerian citizens. And suddenly, the institutions being protested against, filed, which is under the executive, files in a suit and all that. And only for us to now hear that, oh, the head of that organization says, I'm not aware of that. I never approve of it. It shows dissonance. And when things are not certain, it's only an unreasonable person that will hold a certain solid trust in an uncertain situation.
Well, just to put it out there that we reached out to the police to also be on this conversation so we can get some clarity. We're still waiting for a response. And talking about the police, Mr. Ogunlana, what are the likely implications, if it is possible for you to speak to it? The fact that we haven't seen any police officer testify at these hearings up until this moment, and then this case comes up. What are the implications?
Well, legally speaking, one will first consider, do they have notice of these suits? That is, were summons or whichever subpoena they served on them, and properly so. I shouldn't like to speculate as a lawyer. If it is established, and that could only be established via the records of the various panels. I heard Honorable Justice Okuobi, chairman of the panel of Lagos, complaining rather bitterly to the council of the police, to the extent that there's a council, at least in Lagos, that had come up for the police is to suggest that there is notice. The gentleman was quoted as saying that he was having difficulty, or maybe it's the Honorable Judge saying, these people are saying they are finding it difficult to get their witnesses and all that. It's what we face ordinarily in the courts of Nigeria. You'll find out that prosecution witnesses, especially the ones from the police officer themselves, they'll just come up with spurious something. They will not come. If they come, they will say they have a special assignment, they are posted somewhere, and generally the courts do accommodate them. But if it were to be the defense, witnesses for the defense or the complainant, an accused person, from my own experience and the experience of many lawyers, the courts are less lenient, are less accommodating. Now, the police force or organization that we have in Nigeria, it has a culture of impunity, like any other form of organs of the executive, and so they've carried their tradition to the panel. More so now than a defensive retreat. All these people have been accused. People who are petitioned against, officers have been petitioned against, have been accused of grievous previous crimes or offenses. Now they will be dodging. And to be fair to the police on the other side, at least we hear reports of court martial or people being disciplined and of some of them being dismissed. It could be possible that some of these officials, having been dismissed, they've gone away. And for a slack, loose organization that people are just posted maybe without due record, somebody that was in Lagos will have been taken to Ebonyi, from Ebonyi to Maiduguri. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just trying to be fair that it's possible that all this slackness, looseness is maybe finding it difficult for the organization itself to track down its own members to come and face the music. But really, like most organizations in the country, there's a lot of in-house cover-up, not only limited to the police, to cover up, even professional bodies cover up, so that people will be shielded away from justice. But the thing is this: the panel has been set up. There is a mandate to be exercised, and I will urge the panels to be fair but very firm. To be fair but very firm. If the police cannot produce their men, the matter will be taken. Having been served properly, you have due notice, then the matter will be resolved in the absence. Because if you serve someone, they can't wait for them forever. You have served due notices and you could not produce a witness. Too bad for you. And then the verdict naturally will go against them, because upon the facts, panels of law, courts of law, whatever, they always say upon the evidence before me. If you are not here, if you have been served notice and you are deemed to have notice and you do not come and give up your own defense or your side of the story, the matter will not halt the activities of the adjudicating body, and the evidence presented before them is what they will rely on to take their decision.
Okay. Well, Mr. Ogulano, we're due for a break now. When we return, we'll take up Dr. Onanaba on some of the issues, especially the procedure with government filing cases, perhaps the outcome of this panel and the implications. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Dr. Onanaba, what's the process? Because for a lot of people, they wonder how come. So there's an order said to have been, lodged by the police, but still the same police from the IGP saying, we're going to investigate this. How did this happen? So help us understand, for a government agency, as it were, like the police, how do they approach the courts? Do they need to speak to the Attorney General? What's the process really before they even go to court?
Well, it's a bit complex. What is settled is that the chief law officer of the country is the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice. There have been decisions allowing police lawyers to prosecute up to the Supreme Court. So that's where the complication began. Now you begin to see ICPC or EFCC have EFCC lawyers and all that. You remember during Adoke's tenure as AG, there were issues as to EFCC and the Minister of Justice who should take the lead and all that, but that is history. I do not understand how, well, I mean, the IG is a lawyer, so I don't understand how an action was filed in the name of Nigerian police and without an approval of the Inspector General of Police. That we need to be told. Now that there is a query, as we hear, I will expect that there should be an independent investigation, not the police investigating themselves. Speaking from public interest, because all these officers are paid from the tax of Nigerians, from the resources of the country. They are public officers, so I wouldn't expect the federal government to leave the matter at the point that it is just query and all that. We need to know, for the sake of the future, for the sake of the public, for the sake of the integrity of processes in this country. Some of these things make Nigeria to be looked at in a derogatory manner in the Committee of Nations. This should not be allowed to go that way. In fact, you look at it, when the SARS protests were going on, and then the way it ended up with different groups saying different things. You also know the CNN connection about it. And now everyone seems to be settled to see, okay, what is it actually that led to these demonstrations? A judicial process, a due process is ongoing. If this due process is truncated and people feel aggrieved, what do you want people to do in future? Peaceful demonstration is truncated, it cannot work. You say, let us go by due process, headed by judges, processes are going on. You see that the required evidence sometimes is not seen. And there's a court process to truncate it, to stop it. So where will we find justice in the country?
You know,
that's the public interest issue. So now, if that turns out not to have been authorized by the Inspector General of Police, then who authorizes court actions in this country?
Which is the question of the process. What process normally should that kind of thing take?
No.
Is it possible for a legal representative to file a case in court on behalf of a client without the client's notice?
No, it's not possible. The lawyer, we have professional ethics. Of all professions in this country, none has developed professional ethics than the legal profession, because we practice the law.
Okay, so if it wasn't ordered by the client,
I'm not going to.
No, let's just assume, because of the notice from the... Just one moment.
All right.
In the event that is the case, what would be the position of maybe the NBA hospital about a lawyer that contravenes or violates the ethics of the profession?
The rules of professional conduct are very clear as a procedure to follow. And that's not what to discuss at this point. Let me give you a scenario. If the police is to brief a lawyer, typically, the lawyer doesn't have to go to the IGP to get the instruction. The Commissioner of Police legal in the police, or people from that department, you are familiar with, have been directed by the Inspector General of Police. You've heard that before. No law says after such, assuming that's the case, that you should say, no, IG, call me on phone first, or write a letter yourself. That is why when you say that there's a query and there's inquiry, I go for an independent inquiry that will involve NBA, because the professional status of the lawyers that file the action is at stake. So we need to be sure that there was an instruction. And beyond instruction to a lawyer, there is also perfection. So who paid or pays? Who paid or pays for the process? Who pays for the service?
Because it must have been paid for.
There has to be payment for the service. Who pays or pays? You should imagine the magnitude of the case. It's a case stopping 36 panels headed by 36 retired judges with legal process, like in Lagos. Look at the panel. My friend Debola Deborowa, and the senior advocate of Nigeria, he shut down practice for a long time to be in that panel. That's how serious the government took this matter. And a government agency brings an action. It's not even by an NGO. It's worrisome.
You've dealt with cases involving the police.
Yes.
And I mean, looking at this process, there are a lot of people asking. In fact, Mr. Aguilana mentioned that, what is the police hiding? Now, we've seen that over time, it's been hard to find policemen, just one at least, to come testify. And the questions people are asking is, how difficult is it to find a policeman, at least just to speak? I know it might be tricky because listening to some of the witnesses...
I'll give you a scenario.
Okay.
It's just that the filing of this action has worsened confidence in the police. And it is important that steps were taken immediately to try to stop this action. Because it would have been revolting if this action was to allow to continue in that way. It means that, take for example, if the brutality took place in Sokoto and the people had run to safety in Lagos, they moved to Sokoto to appear before this panel, only to be told, please go back to Lagos, there's a court order stopping the panel. Again, we go back to the police part you're talking about. I'm aware of certain situations, like some of the police officers may have been dismissed, may be on special duty out of the country, or may have been dead. That can account, but it should not account for massive non-appearance of witnesses.
Let me ask Mr. Aguilana this one, because I mean you and Dr. Nanaba clearly are speaking, about the same thing and on the same page about this. But the question that I would want to ask is about the fact that the policemen, they couldn't trace them, and you also alluded to the fact that they could have been transferred. Don't we have documents to trace where policemen are at any given point? Don't we have a list of their deployment, a schedule of their deployments, a schedule of their transfers, a schedule of their retirements, a schedule of their dismissal? Don't we have addresses where these people can be found or located? Because the assumption a number of people might have is, if the police is not showing up, clearly there is something to hide. Can you hear me, Mr. Aguilana? Oh dear. Well, you want to attempt that question then, Dr. Naba?
Yeah, like I said, it's not so much of hiding. Like I said, you see, you earn repetition.
No. Please speak to the fact that there are supposed to be documents. It's supposed to be possible to trace.
It goes beyond that in reality. We also are not against the police, because we need the police and we understand their own difficulties within what they work. Okay. Beyond the police, what is the state of our statistics in Nigeria? Data. And I used to tell people that in Nigeria we like the word about. I wish that we can ban the use of the word about. Then it will help us to be clear, to work harder in this country.
How do you mean?
Good. What is the population of Nigeria? About 90 million. About 100 million. About 200 million. About 300 million.
It's a mathematical term.
About.
Approximately. Okay, we could use approximately. How about that?
Now I can tell you that if you ask the population of the US, the population agency in the US will tell you this is the number of Americans.
Even that would be an approximation.
This number have died. Even on the even with the as one person drops or comes in, these are the number of immigrants that have come into this country. These are the people that stayed back. These are the ones that left.
But we're talking about the chief investigative agency.
I'm coming to police.
Which is the police.
I'm coming to police. Have you looked at the general outlay of the police? Are they well funded? If the funds are given, are they being used? Do they have equipment? Where would they have the data to know where which police officer could have been? These are the important issues. So if you are asking, you should have known where this person it's possible you may not find. It's possible that some of them have been burnt in the stations that were put on fire. You will hear things like that.
So this is like an SOS signal from the police saying, we need help in this area.
So there's need for help. But beyond that, we should begin to value data in this country. It's a public thing.
Right.
In fact, you could get to police website and say if Okoro Okafor is in the police and we are looking for him, Okoro Okafor in police, he was at this place here. This is his data. This is where he is. So at the panel of inquiry, there will be no worry. We have checked. This officer is presently in Gombe. So give him 3 days, he will come. CP Gombe, bring him back down. That's how it goes.
You know, speaking of those panels, sittings continue today and tomorrow, so we'll definitely be seeing Mr. Ogulano there enjoying Channels Television for live coverage as usual. But I'd like to thank Mr. Adesina Ogulano, who's a legal practitioner and lawyer to NSAS campaigners, the former chairman of the NBA Keja branch and co-convener of New Nigeria Network. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program.
A pilot report of the ICPC Academy indicates that the judiciary tops the list of agencies of government that are most corrupt for bribes and related stuff. ICPC report indicates that the judiciary tops the list with 9.4 billion naira given and taken between 2018 and 2020. How did that happen? Let's have this conversation with Dr. Paul Ananaba, who is Senior Advocate of Nigeria and is still with us here in the studio. Well, overall, let me quote that report. Overall, the justice sector had the highest level of corruption with a score of 63. The level of corruption in the justice sector was heightened by stupendously high amounts of money offered as bribes to judges by lawyers handling high electoral and other political cases. How do you react to that?
Well, like my friend, the statistician from Channels, good news, bad news. The good news is that we are beginning to actually think deeply about the wrong things that are going on in this country. The bad news is that the last hope of the common man is finally threatened. Going beyond that, I have much respect for ICPC and Professor Wasonye, who is the head of ICPC, is a serious-minded Nigerian. I happen to have been his student at some point at my postgraduate level, so before the IPC, I think it was a very commendable appointment. Those are the quality of Nigerians I believe we need at this stage. And I believe and trust that he will continue on the trajectory I had known him as a student. So if he issues a report, I know the thought process that will go through it. Going further from that, I want to say that when problems come in this manner and issues come, the judiciary is often seen placed in a position that it cannot react, it cannot respond, it cannot join issues. That's not to say that the judiciary is a sent organization. There is corruption in the judiciary. And when you just lump it at judiciary, it becomes tough to know, are you talking about the judges?
Okay, so...
Are you talking about the court staff, officials? Are you even talking about lawyers? There are still lawyers in the judiciary. Are you talking about the profession itself? But put together, there is corruption across all the lines. but not at the. I don't think it will. It should be. I don't believe, and I don't accept that the judiciary will be at the top of that table, because even the corruption level really should be beyond 9 billion.
Oh, you're saying that it probably is more in the judiciary?
Should be. It should be.
Well, the reports...
Sorry, just a moment. To quickly reference what you said, a number of categories were mentioned in the judiciary, just as you said. Talked about judges,
yes,
talked about lawyers,
yes,
and talked about court officials.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it even went to break down the lawyers to male and female. Yeah. Male taking the cake more than 60%,
yeah,
and the females taking about 30%, all of that. So that breakdown is definitely there. What is troubling, which, as you have said, is that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man as we speak. So if at that level we're having such level of corruption that's likely to rob people of justice, then where goes the common man?
Well, the common man will be where he is, because the process is disadvantageous to the common man. Now, if you don't have funds, if you don't have money, it's difficult for you to even get quality representation. I mean, in many cases, you see that your lawyer may not be in court if you don't provide the resources for him to be in court. And the issue of justice, the legal aid counsel, what does it do? With pro bono cases, what seriousness goes to pro bono cases? I wish you will be. I speak from the point that I had the public interest section of Nigerian Bar. You will find out that even when cases are given, we do this on pro bono. If a lawyer is offered 1 million naira, for example, to come and do a case, and he has a pro bono case, which one will he go first in Nigeria? Which one will put fuel in the vehicle? So those are the issues. So we need that type of reassessment of our judicial architecture. And again, let me go back to that report about the judiciary being the highest. Particularly during election times, it is politicians that take their wars to the judiciary, to the judges, to the judicial officers. Some of these politicians are the ones who appointed those judges. And sometimes it is payback time. Take the judge, a governor, a president that appointed you or made you head of a court, and it comes to the person's case. Well, you need strong character and integrity to stand your ground. And again, not long ago, you began to see that even security agencies could break into judges' houses, take them out at any time. The issues that have arisen from executive orders in respect of salaries and which goes to the independence of the judiciary have not been thoroughly addressed. I'm aware of judges, chief judges, that will go from their governors and another, say, capping and asking for funds. Many of the judges have no vehicles. If they have rickety vehicles. Many of them have no courtrooms. This one will sit from this time to this one. The other one come and sit.
So you think that maybe increasing funding for the judiciary might solve this?
It will go a long way. Not only increasing funding, but other indices, other things that will guarantee independence of the judiciary. Now, when a judge can be, you know that if a judge is removed, that judge cannot practice law again. Unlike overseas, when in certain countries overseas, where if you are removed as a judge, you take your dust, your weekend gown, and go to court, then you can stand your ground.
Well, this report also says they were offered. Some of them rejected it, actually, because it's more of a pilot survey. The report itself will be out eventually, which will break down across different sectors. For now, what we have is the executive, legislature, the judiciary, and private sector. Those were just the 4 sectors. But as we wind down, is there a mechanism, really, for judges to report people that offer them bribes? Because clearly, people offer, but it appears as though we don't get to hear about it. Maybe they just reject and let it slide. Is there a mechanism for that in the judiciary?
Yes. Starting from the judge has oddly. Every judge has oddly. Police oddly. The judge is a Nigerian. And every avenue to report crime is available to the judge. But the point is, if the judge reports a powerful politician, because most of the people who offer these bribes are not the ordinary Nigerians you're talking about. They are not the ordinary lawyers. And now there's a backlash. The judge against the person who offers the bribe. These bribes are not offered in the marketplace. It becomes a back and forth. Who will lose at the end of the day? Is there a protection? Those are the areas to also look at. So the legal profession is a solemn profession. So sometimes the judges will, for fear of what I've just told you, continue to die in silence and cry. So it is the bar that can come to their rescue sometimes to say, this is going on. But then, look at some states where the most senior judges, which is the tradition of the bar, are not allowed because they are not, they do not, play along.
Well, Dr.
They are not allowed to be confirmed as chief judges. So if there's the tradition and it is there, you know that if you give your judgment, it will not affect your growth and your ascendancy. You continue, but if you now see that if you don't do what the politician says, even when it is not just, you will lose out and nothing will happen.
There are so many issues to look at, so many angles to look at this from, Dr. Ananapa, because one would wonder, okay, so if it's about individuals, then where is the institution? But we could go on and on about this, but perhaps another time we'll be able to take it up. But we have to thank you very much for your time and thoughts this morning. Dr. Paul Ananapa is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you again. And also chairman of SPILO, the NBA section that he heads. We're back in a moment. Do stay with us.
Well, if you take a look at the front page of the dailies this morning, you'd see a report that looks like CBN's new forex remittance policy begins today. That's front page news, meaning it is big news. But just to put this in context, forex remittances for Nigeria across the years, we've topped $20 billion. And if you juxtapose that with our budget, you can imagine how much that is. That is over 50% of Nigeria's budget. So yet again, that is big news. But just to understand what this is about, why did we have to change a policy? What does this mean for us moving forward? We have joining us, as you have seen in that opening slide, Terap Abdurrahman, who is Director TTI at Nigeria's Diaspora Commission, a former member of the House of Representatives as well. He joins us from our Abuja studios. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. I tried to put this in context, but I know you're closer to this, so you understand why this is a big deal. So if you could just give us a background. What was the policy before, and what necessitated the policy change?
I think from our own perspective, the policy, of course, as clearly stated out in the document, is a situation where before now, Nigerians in diaspora, whenever they remit their proceeds into the country, beneficiaries don't always get it in the currency in which it is being remitted. So you find a situation where someone sends $1,000, and then the beneficiaries receive the Naira component in a particular kind of a value determined by the international money transfer agencies, the receiving banks, or the transfer agents. So the current situation now, what is now taking off today, is that if anyone remits, for example, $1,000 from the United States, the beneficiary is going to get $1,000 in dollar-denominated currency, or the currency that the beneficiary wants to take.
You know,
So
largely
that's what the new policy has.
Okay, right. Just to clear, largely, I mean, we've heard dollars, but I think I recall the CBN governor saying that it will be in designated foreign currency of choice. So is this restricted to just dollars or any foreign currency?
Yes, actually, that's it. It's a currency of choice. I gave an example with dollars because the nation of the United States. If the person is sending from Europe, from China, from Saudi Arabia, from Sudan, wherever the person chooses to be and wants that beneficiary to receive the available currency, it does mean that the beneficiary can actually have that choice to get the value in the currency he or she requires to have.
Okay, so the other side of my question is what necessitated this? Because this was not the policy before, like you alluded to. So clearly something was maybe not working or we needed to improve on it. So what may have necessitated this change in policy?
For us in the Diaspora Commission, I think, first of all, this is a very commendable policy. And it does help to open up and of course show up the remittances into the country. I would not like to hold brief for the Central Bank of Nigeria. And of course, I believe it has effect on the current, of course, it's a monetary policy issue. But beyond that, I believe it may have something to do with the current economic situation that the country is into, and having realized that there are some external and kind of, what do you call it, some artificial effects on the value of on the current value of Naira and the current value in which the foreign currency is sold in the country. I think that is what necessitated them to act in that manner. But also, as a country, let us also appreciate the fact that that has been a major concern for Nigerians in the diaspora. They have been pushing for that. They want whatever they send, for whatever reason, or for the beneficiaries to receive the actual value. And that is far-reaching. It has very long-term effects. Let's look at it from the aspect of diaspora investments. People would like to see that whatever is it that they earn over there can translate into whatever sort of investment, either social, economic, or what have you, a kind of investment they would like to put back in their home country. For us, it now gives that kind of importance that we have wanted the country to attach to its human capital resources. There's been so much talk about diversification of the economy. And I believe that one area that has not been looked at properly is that human capital aspect. And the human capital aspect of our resource largely now comes also from the diaspora. For a diaspora to be remitting up to about $25 billion as we have it in 2019, of course, which is almost the national budget, which contributes about 6% to our gross domestic, of course, to our gross domestic product, and of course, which is about 3 times the size of our foreign debt requirement. It tells you how much you have to actually appreciate what nature of human capital you have, and also as an alternative source of revenue to the country. Because the remittances ourselves are not the revenue, but it helps, just like the Central Bank Governor said, it helps in balancing or determining our balance of trade in the international market, And that also helps to show up the value of the Naira in the foreign exchange market.
I think the value of the Naira is something that a number of people might also be asking now, how that plays out, because since the official currency in Nigeria is the Naira, and Nigerians in Nigeria can now withdraw their money in a foreign currency, could be dollar, could be yen, could be whatever else, in Nigeria. How does it affect them directly? You know, is the question a number of people might be asking, because just as you said, if we have to flood, say, $25 billion into Nigerian economy, you know, in the public space, just about anywhere, everywhere, all over the nation, how does it help the Naira?
Okay, like I said, I would not like to hold brief for the CBN, but of course, in my little understanding of what balance of trade means, is that the more, because every country produces something, it is expected that your balance of trade determines, that's what do you call it, academically, it determines the value of your currency in the international market. And your balance of trade simply means how much of foreign currency is a country being able to attract. The more foreign currency you attract, because once foreign currency comes into your local economy, that currency changes into your local currency. So if you bring in so much dollars, it means you are going to buy Naira with these dollars. So the more Naira you buy with the dollars, that helps to increase the value of the Naira. So in that context, it helps, one, because previously now, people are discouraged in sending remittances to back to Nigeria, except when necessary, because they believe that the actual value of what they send is not obtained in the country. With this current policy, it means that anybody who sends any foreign currency into the country, the beneficiary or the purpose for which it is sent for will be achieved just as intended. That is an encouragement, because for so many who have decided to withdraw from remitting funds into the country will now be encouraged. And that's the spirit that the central bank governor is actually alluding to. And he believes that, of course, we all believe, because we sit on a lot of committees that is aimed at encouraging diaspora investment into the country. And one of the major concerns is some of these bottlenecks and some of these hurdles that they believe is not very encouraging for foreign investment, especially from the diaspora. So we believe that this very act and this very policy is going to encourage Nigerians in the diaspora to remit funds into the country. That means there is a lot of, there's going to be a lot of dollars coming into the country. We don't buy things in Nigeria in dollars, we buy things in Nigeria in Naira. So what happens is that whoever takes his currency, of course it's a choice. You have to give people that choice to determine what to do with what they receive. But in the end, our markets receive Naira. When you go to the market, you buy things in Naira. That conversion process gives value to the amount of Naira that is being purchased, and that means automatically it can help to increase the value of the Naira against any other foreign currency.
Absolutely.
That's the implication from my understanding.
And now that we're trying to get out of a recession, we can use all the help we can get. But earlier on, you mentioned human capital, and that's something I'd like you to, explore, because you say that we have huge human capital. Do we have a figure, just to have an understanding of how much human capital we have in the diaspora as a nation? Because if we need to at least take advantage of it, we need to have a number or a figure, at least a round figure. So do you have an idea just how much human capital we have?
Thank you very much for that question. Before I answer your question, let me seize this opportunity to make Nigerians understand what we have outside the country as members of Nigerians in diaspora are some of the best, some of the most highly valued, and of course, some of those who are highly sought after in developing many other countries. Just to give you that, to understand what it means to find a way to manage and improve the relationship with our diasporans in a bid for them to come and help develop the country. Beyond that, now back to your question. Our official figures, which we have so far been able to come up with in conjunction with the World Bank and other development agencies, at the moment we have 17 million Nigerians officially who are members of Nigerians in the diaspora. We have 3 and sometimes even 4 stages of that. Basically, we have the first generation, we have the second generation, and then if we have the third generation, and we also even have what is called the fourth generation who are just about coming in. But what we are trying to say here is that there are those who on their own have left Nigeria and are doing very well overseas. There are Nigerians who are born outside the country. And then, of course, there are Nigerians who, members of the black community across the world who believe that they have a link or lineage or ancestry with Nigeria. And every one of them wishes to have that opportunity to relate with the country in so many ways. And we believe in any way possible that we give them the opportunity to relate with the country, it will help in developing the country. Apart from the fact that a lot of them can be vehicles for foreign direct investment, a lot of them already have indicated interest in coming to develop various areas in solar technology, in automotive industry, in the health industry, in the education. So you find all sorts of Nigerians who have succeeded in various ways that are willing to come back and support the country. But beyond that, the remittance alone, because we consider the remittance less than 10% of the average earnings of Nigerians overseas. And most of these remittances are not really are not really canvassed for. They are not really sought after. It is people who are in the diaspora who decide to either help the members of their community, society, family. Very few ones who would like to develop estates and buildings and whatever are those ones who actually contribute to these remittances. So we have not even gotten to the point of sitting with Nigerians in diaspora and telling them, look, this is a project, come and undertake in building or establishing such developmental projects. There you will see the real power, the real capacity of Nigerians in diaspora. Some of us estimate that you can have up to about $500 billion in 10 years if you put the right infrastructure and the right things in place. And that is what the Commission is trying to do thus far.
Well, speaking of those Nigerians in diaspora, one of them, is Adewale Wali Adeyemo, who, I think NIGHTCOM even congratulated him for being nominated to be the Deputy Secretary of the United States Treasury Department. And, there was a conversation on social media, and I'm sure you must have followed that, just to put it out there. So if one more time you can just respond to that, because a lot of Nigerians, see such congratulations, and the first question they ask is, just how much did Nigeria contribute to their success, right? He was born in Nigeria, but was raised largely in the United States. And some draw, inference saying, if he was in Nigeria, would he have been that? Well, that is left to the jury. But for one more time, if you could just respond to that, what do you have to say to those people who always ask questions that, well, just how much did we contribute? Why are we claiming this?
I think my response to everyone, I just want to draw a perspective. We all know what it is like when an act of terror or some criminal activity takes place in most of these countries, and it's something for them to dissociate with. The first thing they mention is the country of origin of the person. We've seen so many instances where people who, some of which were not even born in Nigeria, were mentioned as so of Nigerian descent. If you like, don't claim your own. The most important thing here is that we can't continue to play the ostrich. Whether, in some people's opinion, Nigeria has contributed to the successes of such people or not, the mere fact that the country identifies with them, appreciates them, and wishes them well, to me is enough an encouragement for a lot. And you may need to see what we have in our database, how much that has helped a lot of people to look towards Nigeria. What so far the establishment of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission has done is to change the narrative. Up until this moment, for most of the times, we've only been, of course, inundated with the entire negative narratives of Nigerians in the diaspora. Nobody sells you. You have to sell yourself. And that's what the Commission has been doing. We have to pick the very best of us. It's a choice. If one wants to identify with the country, it's left to him. But we will continue to identify because, I mean, talk to a father who has a son and probably has never contributed in anything in the son's success. The father will always like to get back and appreciate the person if he's successful. Now, whether the son likes to associate with that or not is a different issue. But the fact that we have to understand where we are. The first solution to a problem is for you to understand the problem. The problem is that we never recognize our own. We never appreciate. And we never take into cognizance the successes of Nigerians, which is far more greater than the negative narratives that have been attached to Nigerians and the diaspora.
Well, perhaps
that's... And of course, the value of Nigerian life, for instance.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. If you go to a lot of countries now, there are a lot of countries who are now, who need to think twice before they do anything to any Nigerian. Because for the first time, Nigerians are coming out to say, look, ours matter. Nigerians' life matter. And whatever in that light, you allow anyone to do to a Nigerian.
Yes, in that light of the fact that
you will have to be responsible for that.
Yes, in the light of the fact that Nigerian lives matter, we've talked about the one in the US. Let's quickly talk about the ones not too far away, here in Ghana. Could you give us an update? I mean, we all know what's been happening about, Nigerian businessmen in Ghana and all of the talk about them paying $1 million and all of that. So how is NIDCOM also identifying with their success stories or not?
Interestingly, NIDCOM appears to be the very first agency to intervene. And I can recall that some of these problems dates back to 5, 6, or even 7 years, as far as I am involved in this situation and to the best of my recollection. And I think the situation between Nigeria and Ghana has now kind of metamorphosed into more of a diplomatic issue. It has gone beyond Nigerians who are living in Ghana. It has something, I think, currently there are interministerial committees that have already been set up to liaise with the Ghanaian government. The president of Nigeria has spoken to the President of Ghana. The Speaker of the House of Representatives has visited Ghana personally. And from my own personal opinion, it transcends the idea of just an isolated case. It seemed to have taken a historical dimension and a social one. And I think we will have to. We are now on our own. We are taking notes and making certain recommendations that goes beyond just a mere one case affair. We have to look at the entire Nigerian-Ghana historical relationship perspective. And of course, don't also forget that it also has to do with the successes of Nigerian traders who are living in Ghana. So
while that is valid, Mr. Abdulrahman,
it is far beyond.
Just one moment. Yes. Well, while it is beyond immediate individual cases, the immediate individual concerns of the traders involved is equally important. So what would you say to those traders now whose businesses are in jeopardy and whose lives are pretty much on the balance while all of this diplomatic melee is going on?
Okay, at the moment, the official position is that some of them have signed to return back to Nigeria, about 720 of them. And what the two countries have to exhaust all avenues of resolution. And of course, in some cases, the government over there tries to show as if it is not aware of some of these local market policies or actions that are being taken, and always tries to be reactive whenever such issues are. So whenever we talk to them, there was never a time to my recollection that the government of Ghana has denied to intervene. So you see, in such a situation, the diplomatic requirements becomes even more complex. I cannot sit down here and tell you in full what the two governments have now are now moving ahead to reach. The best we are doing is to talk out to our own Nigerians who are staying in Ghana. For those who have shown willingness to come back, we are doing everything within the Commission's powers to ensure that that transition is smooth. Some of them have been there for 20 years. Some of them have been there for 25 years. For no crime
here.
That they've
just one moment. The issue here, if you could...
been known for,
just my apologies. The issue here, if you could speak to it very, very quickly, is that just as we have heard from the DG of the chairman of NIDCOM, is that it's not about, the problem is not from government to government, it's among the citizens of Ghana and the citizens of Nigeria at that lower level where they interface. So for those who are directly affected, the Nigerians who are directly affected, what should they be doing now? If you can just speak to that in maybe about 60 seconds.
Yes, you see, the issue here is that's the Ghanaian people or the Ghanaian government have imposed certain tariffs beyond the ordinary control of the Nigerian who is over there. So the best thing, the government has to intervene now, and that's what we are doing. The government has to ensure that some of these policies are watered down so that life becomes ordinarily bearable. You're asking someone, a trader with a small shop, to pay $1 million before he can continue his trade. Sincerely speaking, you and I know that that is not realistic. So that intervention has to take place to ensure that some of these very, very strict measures are brought down. And that is what the two governments are doing. That is what the Commission is pushing for first and foremost. Secondly, for those who have indicated that they are no longer interested in staying in Ghana and they would like to get back to Nigeria, there are a lot of issues also with that. And what we are trying to do is to ensure that that process is fast-tracked so that it's a willing thing. But beyond that, there should also be some palliatives. There should also be some, platforms for them to take advantage of by the time they come back. We are discussing with relevant authorities, with the Minister of Trade, the Minister of Interior, the Foreign Affairs, so that their traders, let them not come back and become a burden to themselves and everybody. Let there be something that can engage them the moment they come back to the country. So we have these two sides of the coin that we are dealing with. One, for those who would like to stay in Ghana, we will have to fight, we will have to ensure that there are certain things, policy-wise, that the government needs to do to accommodate them. For those who want to come back to Nigeria, Nigeria also needs to put in certain policies in place in order to welcome them back and re-establish them in their lines of trade. These are the two
great place to anchor, Honorable
efforts that is being taken place now.
I wish you the very best, because just less than 5 days ago, we hear that shops, another round of closure started. And don't forget, there's that interministerial committee that was set up. So we do hope that these issues are looked into. But we'd like to thank you so much, Honorable Terab Abdurrahman, who is the Director TTI at NIDCOM. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me again. Have a nice.
Well, and you too.
Well, that's Sunrise Daily today and for the week. It's a Friday, and so please do enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend. please speak with Channels Television. My name is Ayo Makide. I wonder why Kayode is smiling, right?
Well, it's a weekend, right? I'm Kayode Kikiolu. Thank you for joining us.